So this is a video on how to create a realistic three-dimensional image of a pumpkin on a flat page using the shading technique stippling. If you have not had a minute to do it already, before you start shading your pumpkin, just take a look at your rubric, which is entitled Rubric for Pen and Ink Drawing. Gives us the freedom to, kind of do any object we want, but this semester we just happen to be doing pumpkins. It's important that we apply gradual gradations in the right places on our drawing with ink, that you create a realistic impression of the form with stippling, cross-hatching, or line design, that you create the illusion of a three-dimensional object on a flat page. So it's not important that you have, the illusion is important, but it's not important that you create exactly how many ribs are on your pumpkin, or that your stem is the same stem that you could draw somebody else's stem if you want. It just has to look believable. The cast shadow will be a different demonstration because it's a different surface, and it's easier than the pumpkin, so we are going to just make sure that we can kind of master the pumpkin first. So here's my pencil drawing of a pumpkin. First thing that I want to keep in mind for any technique is don't outline in pen and ink. Okay? I have my ink and my damp paper towel. I do not have my ink on a dry paper towel like you should have because there really isn't enough space under this little camera. But normally if I was demonstrating on a full table, I would have a big square paper towel to absorb the ink. In this case, if I spill the ink, my artwork will absorb it, which is okay, but not okay for you because you're getting a grade. And I don't want you ruining your artwork. Here we go. I'm going to look at my pumpkin, and I'm going to create a gradation on each rib of my pumpkin. I'm going to start with a rib that seems easy, and on the pumpkin that I'm looking at, I see a full range of values on this rib. So I'm going to start really dark right here with a step 7. This is going to take some time, so if you want to work while I am working on one side, one rib of your pumpkin, go for it. Because, as I have mentioned, stippling is the most, or the slowest technique. You just want to make sure that you definitely have on a dark area of your pumpkin or a dark side of the rib, tight dots that are right up next to each other. You're just using the line as a guide without outlining. And I wouldn't even suggest that you stipple an outline along the dark side of the rib. I wouldn't do it because my concern is that it'll get too liney. And I'm looking down on the bottom of my pumpkin and I see it's pretty dark down here, so I'm just sort of continuing. Stippling tends to be pretty meditative. Like, I can feel myself becoming relaxed just by stippling. Now I am going to create a gradation from step 7 to 2 on my pumpkin, I have a very large step 2, and my step 1 becomes that reflective area on the pumpkin, which is a highlight. If you look at your pumpkin, you have like shininess somewhere, or you should. If you don't, it means I need to readjust your lighting. That shininess is your step 1. Your pumpkin is a semi-reflective object, so there would be a lot more step 1s if we were doing like a glass bottle or something. So this area right here, which is around the area where I have my ellipse at the top of my pumpkin in my drawing, that's a step 1. And then my big objective is shading in at a gradual scale each rib from my step 7 that I know is along here, or along one rib of each rib, to my step 1. The bottom of my pumpkin, it makes sense because the lights are up above, the bottom of my pumpkin is going to be a step 6-ish. However, the bottom of my pumpkin over here is going to be a step 7, because my overall direction of light on my pumpkin from my point of view is light to dark. So over here is lighter, over here is darker. That's my overall value range, lighter to darker. So over here, I'll do a rib here, super, super dark. I'm just going to write this in, and you can do the same. This is a 7. This is a 7. And this gets up to be like a 3 or a 2. And this is a 5 along here. So overall, because the right side of my pumpkin is overall lighter than the left side of my pumpkin, the left rib's going to be darker. It is time consuming, so make sure that your hairs or your stippling don't get hairy. You can go right over the pencil, and whatever you don't complete, you know, I wouldn't erase any of your pencil until the end. And don't erase any of your pencil until you know your ink is dry. In the back of the room, I have a hairdryer set up. So if you don't want to wait, you can always hit it with a blow dryer. We'll do the stem as a separate demo too. At this time, you might be wishing, oh, I picked stippling. I wish my pumpkin was smaller. Like I had suggested, you know, I wouldn't do it bigger than life size because it'd take you a long time. Over in my 2 area, It's not a highlight area, but I'm just doing it really, really light, and then transitioning and getting darker. And staying within my pumpkin outline. So you don't want to be too crazy with your stippling because you don't want to lose your form of your pumpkin. And I'm going to compare my two ribs, the left and right side, and the left side of my pumpkin I want it to look overall more dark. And, you know, this is the reason these aren't due until Friday. We might even find that we extend it till like Tuesday, depending on how you guys are doing. On the dark side of your pumpkin, your step 7, towards the bottom of the rib, should be really, really dark. There should still be some amount of white showing through. If you make a mistake and do too much and it seems sort of like solid, then that's okay. You will just have to create that range throughout your pumpkin, and solid becomes your step 7. So step 6 looks like on our practice is step 7. You know, everything else gets readjusted a little darker, if that's the case. And then the important thing is, the most important thing actually, is that one rib doesn't meld into the neighboring rib. So artistic license, do we recreate exactly what we see? No. Overall, yes, but in some cases, you might not see visually the difference between one rib and another, so you want to exaggerate it. Careful also in the top of your pumpkin where the ribs become really close together that neighboring values aren't the same. So neighboring values should all be different. When you erase your pencil, you can clarify that a little even more. If you keep in mind this saying, a line is only there to show the difference between one value and another, if you can retain that and practice that, then your drawing will be successful.